think there is a lot going on in this country on the political side of things. Francis, we saw just the other day the handshake almost turning to fisticuffs because we saw a very interesting tussle. You will tell us how it's been resolved, if at all, between the handshake parties, basically, about committees in the National Assembly.
Yep. We are told that there is a resolution, ultimately, on the composition of these House committees. And
what was the problem?
The quarrel actually was in two specific committees. One, Delegated Legislation and Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. You remember some time back, Speaker of the National Assembly told us that BBI does not have legs. It cannot walk to Parliament. It has to be walked to Parliament. And how do you walk it to Parliament? You walk it to Parliament through House committees. And the two critical House committees are Justice and Legal Affairs Committee as well as the Delegated Legislation. So the concern, especially from the ODM team, was that some of the members who had been proposed by Majority Leader in the National Assembly, that is Amos Kimunya, to sit in the two committees were perceived anti-handshake, perceived anti-BBI. So there was some fear that while they are in those committees, they can easily slow puncture the BBI process. I don't know how serious those fears were or how unfounded they were, but there was this team in Jubilee that was feeling that, the ODM team has come too much, It is now seeking to influence how some things are being done. And there was that combat. I'm told now there's a resolution. Actually, there's a special sitting of the National Assembly on Wednesday. And part of the agenda is to table that list of composition in various House committees for members to adopt it. But remember, it is a very difficult thing to change membership of House committees mid-term. Why? Because by now, everybody knows which committee is good and which committee is not. They know which committee is lucrative, which committee is not lucrative. So if you are being taken away from one committee...
That good is loaded, huh?
Yeah, good. And I say it very carefully.
Good with goodies.
It's so loaded, you can take it to the bank.
Yeah, good with goodies, yeah? So, like, for example, every member wants to join the Energy Committee. They want to join the Transport Committee. They want to join the Roads Committee. They want to join the Budget Committee. They want to be in the Finance Committee. There's some House committees that are interesting. Have you heard people quarrel about being included in the Catering Committee or in the Library Services Committee? There are some committees that every member wants to sit in, and for certain reasons, because there's a lot of influence. For example, if you sit in the Roads Committee, there's a way you can access the minister and influence how some roads will be built in your constituency or in your locality. If you're in the Energy Committee, electricity is part of it, so you have access to the minister and so on and so forth. Ordinarily, that shouldn't be the situation, because if you sit in a House committee, then you should be able to represent the entire country, because other than being a member of Parliament from constituency A, you're also a member of the National Assembly. National in that sense. Otherwise, you are expected to sit in that committee and provide leadership, provide oversight, provide representation for everybody. But when you have this push and pull over composition of House committees, it raises questions on the integrity of our members of Parliament, on their efficiency and their credibility in terms of doing some certain things. Hopefully, there will be a resolution to this, and that the members will look at the committee and deal with it. But look at those committees' composition with the face of BBI, particularly, and thereafter, the handshake.
Francis, if you say that people don't like the Catering Committee, then this good must have a very different meaning. But
yes, Joe, the Catering Committee is the most unambiguous one, I think.
But there's no tea. Exactly. There's no tea and mandazi in the House currently.
I remember actually one time a former MP, I think it was Ewerton, protested very loudly when they tried to put him in the Catering Committee. He said it was against his traditions to go to the kitchen. But leaders, this just goes to show how much of quicksand some of these arrangements are actually built on. I mean, if you see how much we have been told about handshake for the last 2 years, and they actually can begin to quarrel about committees in Parliament, it's really quite telling.
Yes, Joe, and this is just a tip of the iceberg. A lot of drama awaits ahead, because there is nothing that has changed about how we do politics, especially politics around succession time. Beginning next year, First, the schools hopefully will reopen, but the other thing that will happen is the race proper for 2022 begins. Never ever trust the intentions of politicians when they get together. They're not getting together 100% in good faith. They get in there, they get together because of different interests. The interests of Jubilee, there's Jubilee Asili, and what's the name of the main one now?
Jubilee. It sounds like Jubilee Kenya and Jubilee Asili.
So the two Jubilees, they have different intentions. At least we know Asili is targeting 2022. We do not know what the plan of Jubilee State House is. We have ODM and Raila Odinga in the mix. But beyond the handshake, they also have their own intentions. That is how politics works. So not all the cards are on the table. So when you see a little fight starting out there about committees, it's because some of those cards start coming out. But there is also another story about that really illustrates the Kenyan political landscape. We all remember that little story about a toto is being invited to a party in the skies, and it borrowed leaves, it borrowed feathers from many birds, and they enabled them the tortoise to fly. And when he reached up there, he got very happy and started forgetting friends. That is a short story of Kenyan politics. So it can happen between now and 2022. If it holds, this will be the longest pre-election coalition or arrangement in our recent history.
I just wanted to add that, I mean, our politics in this country has been founded on betrayal from day one. Who knows? This may go the full hog, 2022 BBI or whatever, or it may not. Maybe one party or the other might walk out of this handshake and say, I tried, and then go and perhaps team up with Deputy President Ruto and say, whatever it is. But there was something interesting that also epitomizes our politics, and it is lunch.
And tea.
And tea. So, Kiraitu Murungi, today, was it not?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, had this to say about a certain lunch that they came out of. What sort of lunch was it, Kiraitu Murungi?
It seems the prayers are political. Even if there's a football match being played by politicians, the person becomes political. So our lunch was political in the same manner that it was being eaten by political colleagues.
What I liked about it was when they came out, and I think all the reporters were ready to shoot their questions, and they said, we have come to announce that we had lunch. Yeah. And I thought, okay, what was that? But what was this lunch about? I was surprised to see the speaker, who I imagine would be a neutral arbiter, is the one who supposedly put this lunch together. What was it about?
The speaker is a product of a political process.
Plus, what neutrality is needed when you're eating, Yvonne?
Yeah. Well, first,
good question.
There's nothing like lunch for politicians. Every time you see politicians having tea or having lunch or dinner or whatever, it's never about that meal. It is something to do with politics, and the meal is just an opportunity to meet.
So what's cooking?
And when you see the speaker is a product of a political process. He is elected by politicians in the House. Even though he is expected to be a neutral arbiter in House debates and everything else, he's also a product of a political process. Speaker Muturi is having his second term in Parliament, and that second term is ending in 2 years. So while other people are also planning for what they will do post 2021 or heading into 2022, he too is planning, I would think. And that's why he constituted that meeting. They told us they met to congratulate Amos Kimunya, the Member of Parliament for Kipipiri, on his appointment as majority leader.
But who was there? Wouldn't you imagine there'd be more members from
of course.
The House?
And that the congratulations were specifically by members of or leaders from the Mount Kenya region is telling. One, I'm told it was a meeting about Mount Kenya unity. There's this concern that the Mount Kenya region has been the hotbed of politics. When you look at the split in Jubilee, the Kieleweke Tangatanga, where was the epicenter of these political combat? The Mount Kenya region. And also, remember the question of Deputy President William Ruto making inroads in the Mount Kenya region and the sway that he may hold or he holds with the population there. And the question of development and what we've seen leaders do there. We've seen cabinet secretaries, PSS, CSS going there to launch projects ostensibly for the president to come and, supervise or launch when that time comes. And it is a response to that concern previously that he may have abandoned his political backyard. And remember, the president in so many times, both in vernacular and in national languages, has told us that he will influence who becomes his successor. Even told us that his choice will surprise us. So when you see political leaders from that region meeting, it is part of that. And also take note that there was Peter Kenneth there, there was Peter Munya there was Governor Kiraitu Murungi, and for some time, Kiraitu and Munya have not been in very good terms. So when you see them together, it tells you that the Mount Kenya region is looking post Uhuru, and also in the event that there are spoils to be shared, maybe seeking one of them to be on that table. But there's a question of boardroom versus ground.
Very interesting things that a lunch can do. And Mheshimiwa John Mbadi tells me that catering committee we talked about, these days it's called Members Services Committee.
Oh, interesting.